On behalf of Akuno Senko for Bay, you know what I'm saying? Jay, where you at? We're trying to help our people elevate. Hope. H-O-P-E. We're giving them hope. We doing what we gotta do, you know? Every day, one step at a time, man. We gonna make it happen. Helping our people elevate. Yeah. Sometimes I practice focus, thought, and meditate. I'm trying to come with other ways to help our people elevate. And seeking knowledge make me levitate. The lifted mental state is what results from how we orchestrate. This for the family's sake. Let's self-reflect and self-evaluate. And every day, make sure the steps you take, you calculate. Receive a master's fate. I know I can't exist without the hate, but that's okay. I balance that with higher self today. Success is on this way, and after that, my flesh can pass away.
All right, peace, family. We back with another one. I want to go over the term Black Amor and the term Moor, its connection, how it was switched, and how it applies today. I have a few different subjects I want to go over, so let's get right into it. All right, so let's go over the term Blackamoor, right? Right, Blackamoor. A Black African or a very dark-skinned person, right? Real simple. Moor, right? The Moors were Muslim people who established a civilization in North Africa and Spain between the 8th and 15th century AD, right? So the Moors were people of North Africa and Spain, right? Established civilization in North Africa and Spain, right? Real simple. Moors or Maori, a dark race living in the northern parts of Africa. See Africa races of Africa, prehistoric modern. Their name is derived from the ancient Mauritanians or Maori that goes back to the medieval 5th to 8th centuries. The Arabs who conquered Spain were Moors. And you'll see the pictures of these dark-skinned Arabs from 698 to 709, the Arab conquest. Then look up to 711 to 713, conquest of Spain. And after Cadiz, 711 to 1262. This is during the time frame when dark-skinned people were civilizing the world. 11th and 13th century, Almoravides and Almohades in Morocco. You'll see they ruled Spain from 1146 to 1232. Then you have 1238 to 1492, founding kingdoms of Granada. Its crumble and fall. See Spain, 1238 to 1273, from 1273 to 1460, then from 1476 to 1492. And of course, you know, that's when so-called Columbus, discovered the new shores. And if you do the history, or as J. Main would say, do your homework, bro, you'll see Columbus is a Spaniard. And so let's get into it before I start going off the board. The Moors were Black kings and queens who ruled Europe for over 700 years. Evidence shows that the Moors ruled for nearly 700 years in Europe, mostly Spain and Portugal. They were identified for their presence on Western society, but not a lot of people know that the Moors were actually African descent Europeans. Not many people know that the Moors, or some, were African descent Europeans. Yes, the original Europeans were dark-skinned people. Europe was named after Queen Europa. She was a dark-skinned Moabites. Y'all gotta forgive me, I'm working with the screen. All right, let's talk about Shakespeare, another reference, right? William Shakespeare. In William Shakespeare's Othello, which was published, was written in 1603. Right here, 1603. Othello was a tragedy written by William Shakespeare, probably in 1603. The story revolves around two characters, Othello and Iago. Othello is a Moorish military commander who was serving as a general of the Vietnam Army in defense of Cyprus against invasions by Ottoman Turks. Now, if you look up the Ottoman Turks, the Ottomans were Moors. So, Othello was a Moor fighting Moors. We'll get into that later. What this is. All right, so let's go back to Blackamoor, right? Did I jump too soon? No, I don't think I did. All right, so Blackamoor, right? It's plural, or it's a compound word. It's really two words put together. You have the word black, which is an adjective, and then you have the word moor, which is a noun. But Blackamoor refers to a European style of decorative art in which dark-skinned, usually male human figures are depicted in a stylized and orientated form, right? So let's look at some of the jury. Blackamoor jury. Blackamoors. Well, as you can see, that's a woman. And as you see, they have turbans on their heads. They have crowns on their heads. They have fezzes on their heads. And so when you see us rocking our turbans and our fezzes, this is not new. This is ancient. This is something that we've been doing. Now, since we're on Blackamoor, I also want to go into the Bible. Let's go into the Geneva 1599 Geneva Bible. The King James was published in 1611. So this here is 12 years older, or 12 years before the King James Version. And I'm gonna put up three scriptures. And in these three scriptures, all three of these scriptures, they have the exact same word or the exact same sayings, but they take the word Blackmore out or Blackamoor out, and they put Ethiopian in there. And those lectures are Jeremiah 38:10, Jeremiah 38:12, and then the last one, I had to go look at it, but it's Jeremiah 39:16, yeah, right here. All three of these, if you go look in the King James Version, you will see them word for word. Only thing they took out was the Blackmore, and as you see here, black is lowercase and more is capitalized, as I said. Black being an adjective, more being a proper noun. So, during the 7th century, the 15th century, as we see here in the 1599 Geneva Bible, the 18th century, the 19th century, this term Moor is not new. This term Moor is ancient. This isn't something that, let's see what this says. Blackamoors began appearing in Europe decorative arts in the 17th century. They became popular in aristocratic homes, including the courts of Louis the Sixth, The fifth, I don't know Roman numerals, so I'm not going to act like I do. At a time when Europeans were engaged in the slave trade, the notion of exotic Black bodies became a symbol with butter ostentation. Go back up there. That's not what I want to see. Again, Moors were Muslim people, a civilized nation of North African descent in Spain between the 8th and 15th century. I'm just touching on some pointers, trying to get this option off my screen. I ain't even gonna lie to y'all. As I showed you, or what I'll do, I'm finna show y'all. Let me just get this stuff off my screen. I'm gonna pull it up for y'all. Let's go here, right? Show you how easy this thing is. We're in the age of technology. So all you gotta do is just pull it up, right? What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna switch it. As you see, I'm going right here, King James Version, right? I'm gonna just type in ATEO. It's gonna automatically, it's gonna correct it for me. So don't worry about my spelling. About right here, right? What I said, Jeremiah. Now, as I said, 38, 10, 12. Okay, 19 didn't pop up. But you'll see the exact same scriptures where they took out Blackamoor and they put Ethiopian. Exact same scriptures. So this ain't something that we just making up, something we just telling y'all. All right, peace, family. We're back with another one. If you haven't, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you have, I appreciate you. Again, if you haven't, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you are a returning watcher or returning viewer, I want to say I thank you for coming back to the platform. If this is your first time on here, I want to say I thank you as well. Like I said, hit that subscribe button. We're going to go ahead and get into it. Today's subject matter is Blacks, Negroes, Coloreds, African American. Who are we? And how does it apply to us in law? What do these statuses reference, or how do these statuses apply to us in law? Whether you're Black, Negro, Colored, African American, etc., Indian, Mexican, whatever. Let's get into it. The subject matter first, we're going into the 1724 Louisiana Code Noir, also known as the Black Christian Codes of 1724. The primary documents, which are these documents we're going to go over, are to regulate relations between slaves and colonists. The Louisiana Code Noir, or Slave Code, based largely on that compiled in 1685 for the French Caribbean colonies, was introduced in 1724 and remained in force until the United States took possession of Louisiana in 1803. The code's 54 articles regulated the statuses of slaves and free Blacks, as well as relations between masters and slaves. The entire body of law appears below. I'm going to go back right here where it says the status of slaves and free Blacks, to let you know that not all our people were enslaved, but at the same time, not all our people were innocent in what took place. Black Codes of Louisiana. Number 1, decrees the expulsion of Jews from the colony. Number 2, makes it imperative on masters to impart religious instructions on their slaves. Number 3, permits the exercise of Roman Catholic creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. Let's go on to 2 and 3. makes it imperative on masters to impart religious instructions on their slaves. So it was mandatory that the masters enforce their religion on their slaves. And it was the Roman Catholic creed only. Every other mode of worship was prohibited. That means if you practice your ancestral science, your ancestral ways, it was prohibited. They forced their religion on you. Also, we'll get into that later. I ain't gonna get into that now. Negroes placed under number 4. Negroes placed under the direction or supervision of any other person than Catholic are liable for confiscation. 5. Sundays and holidays are to be strictly observed. All Negroes found at work on these days are to be confiscated. This deals with marriage and how we weren't allowed to mix races or race mix. We forbid our white subjects of both sexes to marry with the blacks under the penalty of being fined and subject to some other arbitrary punishment. We are going into that later, but numbers, what's this? 6, 7. We're going to 8. We forbid all curates to proceed to effect marriages between slaves without proof of the consent of their masters. And we also forbid all masters to force their slaves into any marriage against their will. Number 9. Children issued from married to slaves shall follow the conditions of the parents and shall belong to the master of the wife and not the husband, if the husband and wife have different masters. And so this goes back to the women having rights over the child, or somewhat rights over possession over the child, I'll say. Whatever plantation she belongs to, their child belongs to. If the husband to be a slave was to be a slave and the wife a free woman, it is our will that their children of whatever sex they may be shall share the condition of their mother and be as free as she, notwithstanding the servitude of their father. And if the father be free and the mother be a slave, the children shall be slaves. So again, if the mother was free, then the child is free. If the mother is a slave, then the child will be put into slavery. What's this? Article 12. We forbid slaves to carry offensive weapons or heavy sticks under the penalty of being whipped and of having said weapons confiscated for the benefit of the person seizing the same. An exemption is made in favor of those slaves who are sent a hunting or a shooting by their masters and who carry them with a written permission or the effects of a designated by known mark or badge. I could keep reading, but just to get into this, there's 54 articles of these black codes. An example of modern time black codes would be when you get pulled over by a police officer and they say, we have a black male, black female code, whatever number they put behind that. They're putting you under those black Christian codes or those black Louisiana codes that took your rights away. And I'll go back into this in just a second. But the black codes of 1724, right? 1724 is when these codes were issued and this took place. Then we have the Negro Act of 1740, which was just maybe 26 years later. The Negro Act was passed in the Providence of South Carolina on May 10, 1740. During colonial governor William Bull's time in office, in response to the Stonewall Rebellion of 1739. What does it say? The Stonewall Rebellion was a slave revolt that began on September 9, 1739 in the colony of South Carolina. It was the largest enslaved rebellion in the southern colonies, with 25 colonists and 35 to 50 Africans killed. The uprising was led by Native Africans who were likely from the Central African Kingdom. So, tells you where this Negro Act came from. It says, the Comprehensive Act made it illegal for enslaved Africans to move aboard assemble in groups, raise food, earn money, and learn to write, though reading was not prescribed. Additionally, owners were permitted to kill rebellious slaves if necessary. The act remained in effect until 1865. There go again. The Black Codes and the Negro Act were both in effect until 1865. John Belton O'Neill summarized the 1740 South Carolina law in his 1848 written work, The Negro Laws of South Carolina, when he stated, "A slave may, by the consent of his master, acquire and hold personal property. All thus required is regarded in law as that to the master." Across the South State Supreme Court supported the position of this law. O'Neill was the only one to express protest against the act, arguing for the property of receiving testimony from enslaved Africans, many of whom had become Christians under oath. Negroes, slaves or free, who feel the sanction of an oath with as much force as any of the ignorant classes, white people in the Christian county. So the Black Codes, and then you have what's called the Negro Act. All right, let's go on to the Jim Crow laws. Right. So you have Blacks, Negroes, and then you got colored. Jim Crow laws. Jim Crow laws were a collection of state and local statutes that legalized racial segregation, named after a Black minstrel show character. The laws, which existed for about 100 years, from the post-Civil War era until 1968, were meant to marginalize African Americans by denying them the right to vote, hold jobs, get an education, or other opportunities. Those who attempted to defy Jim Crow laws often faced arrest, fine, jails, sentences, violence, and death. Right, so you have these statuses: Black, slave; Negro, slave; colored, slave. Right. Now, I touched on Blackamore in another lecture, and the reason why I'm bringing this up in this one is because I want to deal with the language. Let's deal with Black being an adjective, Negro being an adjective, colored being, these are all descriptions. These are not people. This is how they reclassified you and took you from being a natural person, natural being, and made you an artificial being in law. And so when we go to the words, let's go to Latin to English, right? You look up the word moros. Moros in Latin is Moors. Negro in Latin is Black. Negro in Latin, or Negro in Latin, is an adjective. It's still a way of describing something or someone. It's not a being. It's not a person, place, or thing. It's a description. Just as Moros is an identity. It is a people. It is describing the people, not just a description of a color. I could say my flag is red. I'm giving you an adjective. It's a description of something. And so you have the term Moros in English. In fact, the name Moro is a Spanish term for Moors, referring to the Muslims who ruled the Iberian Peninsula from 711 to 1492. The Spanish expelled the Moors and reclaimed the peninsula during an event called the Spanish Reconquista, or Reconquest. Black, the adjective, is Negro. It's an adjective, it's not a people. So you have the term Moor, which is a noun, if I ask it. It's a noun. Moral is a noun. No, same thing. Most commonly used as an adjective. The actors wore black. And so let's get out our feelings, let's get out the emotion, let's look at the logical, let's look at the truth. And so also the president of the Philippines at the time said that before they were called Filipinos, they were called Moros. Who are the Moros whom Filipinos Duterte granted expanded autonomy? The Moro people lived in autonomous enclave but lost their independence when the U.S. colonial administration left them under the Christian administration of the Philippines in 1946. Since then, the Moro people have resolved to peacefully negotiate to regain their autonomy. And so the word Moro is derived from the word Moor, Morocco, comes from the Latin word moru, which was once used to refer to the inhabitants of Mauritania in North or Eastern Africa during the Roman period. These regions are currently in between Algeria, Mauritania, and Morocco. So even this tells you that the Filipino people know them, they know they're Moors. They identify as Moors, Moros. Again, in Latin, Moros, Moro. Black is an adjective, not a people. Black puts you under these slave codes. There's 54 articles, 54 codes. If you want to be black, then this is what applies to you. You shall have no you shall not be properly fed, clad, and provided for by their masters, may give information thereof the attorney. You see our communities. You see the mistreatment we get. We forbid Negroes to sell any commodities, provision, or produce any other kind without the written permission of their masters. Why you think you Negroes need permission to do anything from these folk? Because you up under these slave codes. This ain't something I just made up. This is something that's law. And if you don't know your rights, then you don't have no rights. Now, I know this ain't as long as I normally make my videos, but again, these solo videos are just testers for myself. And I appreciate y'all taking your time out, listening. I got more content coming. Just watch me work.